concepts and the general phenomena of the mental experience of distinct intelligibles as intentional objects are not only the effects of intelligible objects. Okay, so again, concepts are just concepts, you know. It's the miracle of the intelligibility of the world. Yes, concepts qua concepts are just mental immanent things. So, you know, yes, if there's a charge that we're reifying concepts and making them into, like, you know, fundamental realities, then that would be ridiculous, and it's not what we're doing at all. Concepts are the immanent. That's why I'm a nominalist, right? You know, Platonists are nominalists generally, because again, that realism, nominalism, it's just a misconstrual of a historical debate. So you think that realism means there are distinct essences in the world, you know, ḥaqāʻiq, al-ashyāʻ, thābita. Well, if that's what realism means, then of course we're realists, but that's not the historical debate of realism versus nominalism. The debate is about the status of universals. Are universals qua universals particulars? You can already answer that a priori. No, they're not. They're universals, because it would be a breach of the principle of non-contradiction to say they were particulars. You know, particular, the juz'i is ما يمنع النفس تصور مفهومه عن وقوع الشركة بين كثيرين. Shirka and sharika both allowed, right? So that which the pure conceptualization of that thing prevents or precludes the possibility of participation in many. So if I think of, you know, Sidi Niaz with his particular individuality and matter, that's actually the important page, and matter, right? He precludes participation in many. He can only be one. There can only be one, right? Whereas, you know, the kullī is ma la yamna'u nafsu tasawwuri mafhumihi an waqa'i sharikati bayna kathirin. That which the pure conceptualization of its nature does not prevent the possibility of participation by many. Okay, that's a mental entity. It's true. Ockham's absolutely right. It is a mental entity, but that's not the form, right? The forms are not universals. Very important. Tfaddal, ya Amar.
I would like to hear your thoughts on something, because something I thought about a while back. When you define, say, al-juz'i or al-kullī, so you start be ma la yamna or ma yamna.
Yeah.
My call it an observation, whatever, is that the idea of a ma is so undetermined so as to allow different metaphysical conceptions of what the juz'i or kullī may be, in a way that, well, this might be shallow or stupid, but in a way that logic is construed. So logic is construed to allow all these different philosophical positions, all the while keeping the, I would say, formal structure intact. I would be interested in hearing what you think about that.
I think it's a very good point. I mean, it's the distinction between matter and form, but the thing is, you know, this comes out of, you know, so you have, you know, اللفظ الدال بالوضع يدل على تمام ما وضع له المطابقة على جزء بتضمن إن كان له جسم وعلى ما يلازمه في الذهن بالالتزام ثم اللفظ إما مفرد وهو الذي لا يراد بالجزء منه دلالة على جزء معناه ثم المفرد right إما كلي وهو الذي لا يمنع نفسه تصور مفهومه عن وقوع الشركة بين كثيرين. So we're not talking about things, we're talking about alfaz. Now, obviously, it's the concept which, when we start to engage in a metaphysical appraisal of, let's say, philosophical logic, then, you know, the concept has to have a ontological status. And of course, you know, the definition of logic, which was really standard throughout the Islamic world, and people rightly say the later definition, which, you know, they make this big hoo-ha as if it was this huge revolution, but it wasn't. It was really more or less the same thing, whether you say tasawwur and tasdiqat or al-ma'qulat al-thaniya. But, you know, the traditional definition of Avicenna, which was then the standard definition in the medieval world of logic, is that it, you know, it's al-ma'qulat al-thaniya allati la yuhadha biha amrun fil al-khārij min haythu tantabiq ala al-ma'qulat al-ula allati yuhadha biha amrun fil al-khārij min haythu al-īsāl ila al-majhulat. And that is the jiha wahda dhātiyya of logic. So that is the actual division of being that it studies, right? So, you know, you
have built in.
Right. So say it again.
So it does have the ontology or the metaphysics.
It does have the ontology built in, but both معقولات ثانية and معقولات أولى are universals, right? Because they're معقول. So, the معقولات الثانية, things like, the five predicables and like universality itself as a predicate and things like that. And معقولات أولى, which are like, ما يحاذى بها أمر في الخارج, like man, tree, sky. So you apply those secondary intelligibles to those primary intelligibles, and then you get knowledge of things that you previously didn't know. So, but yes, logic in itself is fundamentally compatible with lots of different metaphysical systems. However, I believe also this blind conformity to Aristotle, certainly about the categories, which are, they presuppose a dogmatically Aristotelian notion of substance, which Plotinus just calls legomene substance. He just says it's so-called substance, and it's just counterfeit substance. And he has a very profound critique of the Aristotelian categories, which just shows that they are profoundly useless, actually, and just wrong. They're kind of trivially employable classificatory devices, which could have actually obtained in an innumerable multiplicity of different configurations, because they're not rooted in being, they're not real causal principles of unity, and they are in some sense parasitic on legomeneosia, fake substance, and thus like their ontological rooting is just mere assertion. I mean, they're not actually ontologically rooted, yet they're still causes of knowledge, impossibly, because how could be a cause of knowledge if you're not rooted in being? Cause of what? Something that's not in being. So, and how is it a cause if it's not there? So, what I'm trying to say is, not just in the categories, also just in all of the immanentist assumptions which go into Aristotelian logic, quantification over individuals. Yes, you can quantify over individuals, but there are other structures of entailment and concomitants other than just quantification over individuals, because why is the individual the primary, why is it primary being as it is in Aristotle? The point is there are many considerations, and I think that one of our projects has to be, I was previously of the blind traditionalism about logic, but I'm not anymore, because it's not just the challenge of modern logic, which I no longer think we can ignore. I still believe that modern logic, broadly speaking, insofar as it's, that which arose out of Boole and De Morgan and Frege and Russell and Whitehead and whatever, and Wittgenstein and the Vienna Circle and Quine and Carnap and so on. I still believe that it's fundamentally intellectually bankrupt when it comes to making sense of its own metaphysical status. But I think that we can't overlook some of the contributions. It's just, if you get it's just respect for humans. If you get thousands and thousands and thousands of very intelligent people cultivating this discipline over decades and decades, you need to look at what they've achieved. But the other thing is, there are alternatives to Aristotelian logic in the ancient world, and one of them is Platonic dialectic as it was developed by the Neoplatonists. And I just think that there are lots of Aristotelian metaphysical assumptions in Aristotelian logic. The impression it gives of neutrality can often be very misleading. And I think that's just a problem. I think we do need to develop a new logic. That's not going to say that Aristotelian logic is invalid, but it's just that it's one dimension of logic. Again, this idea that, it's Avicenna logic. Well, not much. There's not much of a difference. There is a difference, not much. It's Avicenna logic on that. That kept on developing. We were progressing too. We eventually had relational syllogisms. I like relational syllogisms, and I very much respect the contributions of the later logicians, but it's not enough for what we need. So that's another imperative for us, is to question those assumptions.